If you're living fully, you're living through the lens of all your experiences. I do a lot of things. The hierarchy changes from day to day depending on how I'm feeling, but it would be a number of things. It would be artist, it would be designer, it would be furniture maker, it would be provost, it would be mother. But in my mind, they're all connected. I work very intensely in everything that I do, so I kind of need the relief from one part of my life to another so that I can come back at the other part with the same kind of intensity that I like to give it. I think I would explode if I used that intensity in each one of those all the time. So it's kind of the jumping around that makes it possible to do so many different things. So the provost is the chief academic officer of the college at Rhode Island School of Design in Providence. It's the #1 art and design school in the world according to Business Insider and others. So there's the president and then there's the provost, and I basically run all the academic programs, entities, parts of the college. So it's a real privilege to be able to think about what RISD can be in 5 years, 10 years. We're actually looking at 2050 as kind of a lens through which we can look back at the college and see what we're doing now that sets the stage for then. I grew up in Philadelphia, but I left at about I guess I was just 18. I didn't grow up in a town with a very strong art department in my school, so I was much more interested in creative writing, and my brother actually had a dark room that he set up in the basement of our house, so I can still remember the day that we made a print in the darkroom and I saw the magic of the paper going in, and it really did something to me, and I loved it. So I applied to RISD expecting to be a photographer. And in my first year, I took a winter session class, which was actually taught by a Danish professor named Hans Wolf. And I just fell in love with the challenge of it. It was without a doubt the hardest thing I'd ever done, and I got really excited about pursuing that at RISD. At the time, there was no furniture department. That came later. And when I got into my first semester of sculpture, I was told that I couldn't make anything functional in the sculpture department. And so I struggled through what that meant, and I made sculptures that they really liked, and they wanted me to stay as a sculpture major, but I had this urge to really deal with functionality. And then I sort of found my own way to combine all of the interest into something much more personal and independent. So there were a team of us who worked together to develop the curriculum and the concept for the department, and it was a very long political battle at RISD, but it finally got approved and started in 1995. It's become a fantastically successful department at RISD, very well known around the world, etc. So it's a source of pride. When I first started really designing my own work, I would think about a problem in my life that I wanted to solve, and I figured if I had that problem, someone else would have the same interest. And I would do things like, thinking about my own kind of behavior patterns or the things in my own living space and design around solutions for those. But also at the same time, there was this sort of aesthetic predilection that was developing around the kind of drawing and figure modeling and things that I like to do with my hands. I actually use my process much more as a form of creating areas of sort of fascinating inquiry and just playing around in those. It's very, very unconscious at this point. I don't start with a problem and solve it. The work that I'm doing now, I'm looking at a lot of old parts because I collect or save a part of everything I've ever made. And I look at those parts, and those are actually inspiring new pieces, but not at all in the context of what the original part was. And it occurred to me that it's sort of how memory works, that when you piece together all your bits of memory, you come up with kind of a new story. So I'm using the 30 years of career of making things to sort of tell those new stories. I don't really have a specific outcome. It's really it's the most free way that I've ever worked. Sometimes I just start making things, I don't even know what they are. I sketch all the time. I still sketch. I have a collection of meeting minutes, because right now I do my best sketches on meeting minutes. They're my best drawings ever. Now I am kind of using the process itself as the drawing, so I'm not sometimes I'll have to draw a template or a form to make something accurately, but I'm not doing anything more than maybe a very simple gesture to get a sense of what something might turn out to be. Well, there's definitely something about creating an object that has its own sort of presence in the room, almost like it's a character, or it's not that they're anthropomorphic, but it's just wanting it to have its own sort of gravitas as part of an environment. I mean, that's how I would think about a design, much more than the silverware is this length and I put this many napkins. It's really more about creating a composition, and the fact that this is sitting above and floating and framing and it's only part way. All of those things help to make the story more abstract and give the viewer a more individual way of interpreting it. It's a very personal way of designing, and so I'm trying to make these objects that are kind of the interface between my interests and someone else's interests, and make the platform that can bridge between those two places. I've been very fortunate to have good reception to those things. I mean, if you define function as what gets put in it and how it fits and all that, there is a very careful consideration of that at a point in the design. And for me as a furniture maker and looking at the tradition of furniture making, that's really important to retain that and to keep that moving for future experience. But I think about it more from the interactivity and the experience of the function. And that's the one that is probably in the hierarchy of all the things that define a function, the one that I'm striving for first. I think I've also gotten to a place in my life where I love taking bigger risks. I mean, the things I'm doing now are much riskier than things I've ever done before, both in my work and in my professional life. Artists and designers have very fine-tuned sensitivity about their world and about the idealism of where they want that world to go. And so when they bring that into other arenas, it gives them, in a way, their humanity. Society is losing that, and a lot of art is being unfunded, and instead this notion that technology will save the world. Well, technology needs to be directed, otherwise it's going to do the opposite. And so when artists and designers can connect with technology, it has resonance. I see more and more opportunities. I travel a lot, and I'm really interested in other parts of the world. And I think the sense of bringing a more diverse perspective into who I am as an artist or designer has been hugely impacted by that travel. It's having that language, that sort of making language that's very emotional, very intellectual all at the same time. And you bring that to everything you do, so it's never really an end, it's just the next thing. So I'm always excited about, people always ask me, what's the best thing you've ever made? And it's like the thing I'm working on, because I'm in it. And so if it's not the best thing, then I won't work on it, I'll work on something else. So it's a continuum for sure.